In our headlines on this Monday, July 14th, here in South Korea, a series of confirmation hearings for nominees of President Lee Jae-myung's first cabinet took place earlier today. Meanwhile, 4 separate delegations are heading to the EU headquarters in Belgium, as well as to France, the UK and India to share South Korea's diplomatic agenda. And the Trump administration's country-specific tariffs will go into effect on August 1st, should U.S. negotiations with its trade partners fail to produce deals that the U.S. leader likes. We started the National Assembly today, where a number of nominees for the President's first cabinet took questions from lawmakers about their qualifications, while similar sessions for others were suspended. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young starts us off.
The Assembly confirmation hearings for President Lee Jae-myung's first cabinet got off to a rocky start, with tensions between the rival parties prompting some sessions to be delayed or suspended. National Assembly standing committees held 4 hearings on Monday, including those for the nominees for unification, science, oceans, and gender equality ministers. In South Korea, cabinet appointments are subject to parliamentary hearings but do not require legislative approval to take effect. While the main opposition People Power Party has vowed to examine the nominees' qualifications and moral integrity, claiming many are unfit and should step down, the ruling Democratic Party is backing the nominees, saying there are no critical flaws.
The Democratic Party will support the swift formation of the Lee Jae-myung administration's cabinet to ensure smooth governance and help stabilize state affairs.
The Lee Jae-myung administration's first cabinet lineup is completely flawed. None of the nominees are qualified. There are concerns that the hearings will just become a stage for baseless excuses and lies.
During their hearing for Unification Minister, nominee Jong Dong-young emphasized the need to improve relations between South and North Korea and restore peace on the Korean peninsula. He also said the minister's name should be reconsidered and discussed in the National Assembly, suggesting Ministry of the Korean Peninsula as one possible option. Chung has been stressing that renaming the ministry would help focus on making peace on the Korean Peninsula a top priority.
The Jae-myung administration needs a fresh start. As part of that, I believe it's time to consider changing the name of the Ministry of Unification.
Kang Sun-woo, a DP lawmaker nominated for Minister of Gender Equality, faced a rough start to her hearing amid intense debates over allegations of workplace abuse. With 18 nominees, including 16 ministerial candidates, scheduled to appear before the National Assembly over the course of the week, the political standoff between the rival parties is expected to continue. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung appointed 5 vice ministers this past Sunday. Chae Eun-ok has been named Vice Education Minister in acknowledgement of her commitment to academic reform and development. Meanwhile, Koo Hyuk-chae, the head of the Science Ministry's Planning and Coordination Office, has been promoted to First Vice Minister, while at the Veterans Affairs Ministry, Kang Yoon-jin, the ministry's first female Director General, is set to take the post of Vice Minister. Also announced were new Vice Ministers for Land and SMEs, as well as 7 other vice ministerial level appointments, including Hong So-young, the first woman to head the Military Manpower Administration. On the diplomatic front, President Lee Jae-myung is dispatching several delegations overseas to demonstrate what he calls the return of democratic South Korea and to share his policy agenda. 4 separate delegations have been set up to visit the European Union headquarters in Belgium, as well as France, the United Kingdom and India. The delegation to the EU, led by former Environment Minister Yoon Yeol-jun, departed earlier on this Monday, and the remaining 3 delegations are scheduled to depart by Wednesday. Their agenda includes talks with key officials and the delivery of letters from President Lee Jae-myung. Additional delegations will be announced once schedules are finalized. Also earlier on this Monday, President Lee Jae-myung addressed the country's future civil servants, sharing his thoughts on the mindset he hopes they'll bring to public service. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
Ever since taking office, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has emphasized that every hour spent by a public official is equivalent to 52 million hours for every person in the country. That sense of responsibility was the main message in a lecture the president delivered to some 300 trainee civil servants on Monday at the National Human Resources Development Institute in Jincheon, Chungcheongbuk-do Province. He described public service as work that could, quote, determine the country's fate.
공직자들 손에는 정말로 많은 사람들의 삶이 달려 있습니다. 여러분들은 더군다나 대한민국 공직자의 중간 관리자, 중간 간부, 사무관으로부터 출발하지 않습니까? 여러분 손에 엄청난 권한이 주어져 있죠.
The president also pointed out what he called the biggest problem in Korea's bureaucracy, a culture where well-intentioned decisions are still punished if they fail, which he says makes civil servants passive.
공직자들이 처하는 어떤 선택 결정의 단계에는 가능성이 무궁무진하죠. 그리고 그 사후적으로 이 결정이 잘 됐다, 아니면 그보다 더 나은 결정이 있었다라고 책임을 묻고 평가하게 되면 이거는 공직자들한테 신이 되라고 요구하는 것이나 마찬가지예요. 근데 우린 신이 아니잖아요. 사람으로서 최선을 다하는 거죠.
After the lecture, President Lee took questions from the audience, offering advice based on his experience as Hungnam City Mayor and Gyeonggi-do Province Governor.
모두에게 칭찬받는 일은 없어요. 정책을 하기 때문에. 충돌할, 조정할 권한을 우리가 국민에게 받았기 때문에 그걸 담보로 최대한 오해를 줄이고 이해시키고 조정하고 안 되면 마지막에는 칼로 자르듯이 권력을 행사해야죠.
This was the first time in 20 years that a sitting president lectured soon-to-be deputy directors the entry-level grade for those who passed the National Civil Service exam. Afterward, President Lee visited the site of the 2023 underpass flooding in Osong in the city of Cheongju for a safety inspection, reflecting his view that public officials must always prioritize people's safety. Tuesday marks exactly 2 years since the disaster, which killed 14 people. 송유진, Arirang News.
And the president this past Sunday sought to share South Korea's democratic resilience in a speech to mark Seoul's latest hosting of an international symposium on political science. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min has more.
Standing before a global audience, the South Korean leader Lee Jae-myung's message of the resilience of democracy was loud and clear.
우리 대한 국민이 보여준 놀라운 회복력과 민주주의의 저력은 대한민국의 것인 동시에 전 세계인들의 것입니다. 우리 국민들이 직접 보여준 오색빛 K 민주주의가 길을 찾는 세계 민주 시민들에게 등불이자 새로운 이정표가 될 것으로 확신합니다.
As he made the remarks at the opening ceremony of the International Political Science Association's 2025 World Congress in Seoul on Sunday, President Lee was highly critical of the martial law incident by former President Yoon Suk-yeol, calling it a coup d'etat aimed at permanent rule. His message was also directed at what lies ahead, reconciliation.
갈등보다 대화를, 상처보다는 치유를, 대립보다는 화해를. 우리의 미래를 구할 K-민주주의의 핵심 정신은 민주주의의 가치인 자유, 평등, 연대를 철저히 복원하는 것입니다.
He went on to extend the value of democracy to the lives of the people, calling democracy and freedom inextricable.
불평등과 양극화, 빈곤의 파고가 성장을 가로막는 위기의 시대, 이때의 자유란 곧 경제입니다. 자유란 굶주림을 채워줄 따뜻한 식사이고 삶을 꾸려나갈 수 있는 괜찮은 일자리이고.
The liberal leader wrapped up his speech by describing what the future holds for democracy in a digital era, as he noted the use of smartphones to monitor abuse of power.
이미 도래한 AI 혁명이 디지털 민주주의를 더욱 발전시킴으로써 합리적 토론과 민주적 의사결정을 돕고 직접 민주주의를 강화하는
This year's Congress runs from July 12th to 16th in the South Korean capital, under the theme of resisting autocratization in polarized societies, bringing together some 3,500 political scientists from around the world. It's the second time that Seoul hosted the event. It last hosted the Congress in 1997. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Across the border, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has reaffirmed Pyongyang's alignment with Moscow on all strategic matters. Remarks to this end followed his meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov this past weekend in Wonsan. Kim reportedly reiterated North Korea's unconditional support for Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. Lavrov, in response, underscored the Kremlin's commitment to deepening strategic cooperation with Pyongyang. Back here in South Korea, the State Arms Procurement Agency has successfully held a series of live-fire tests of the Marine Corps' locally constructed attack helicopter, which is currently under development. Now, more than 3 daytime and nighttime live-fire drills of machine guns and rockets were conducted during the first half of this year. The agency has applauded the tests, adding that the Marine Corps' air power in real combat situations has been well displayed. Following the prototype's first successful test flight last December, the agency now aims to hold flight test evaluations focusing on live-fire capabilities of guided rockets and air-to-surface missiles. The helicopter is expected to be ready for deployment in the second half of next year. The Trump administration's country-specific tariffs will go into effect on August 1st should U.S. negotiations with its trade partners fail to produce deals that the U.S. leader likes. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young has the latest.
Washington has emphasized its reciprocal tariffs on trading partners will take effect from next month if President Donald Trump doesn't get a deal he likes. On Sunday local time, in an interview with ABC News, White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett said if President Donald Trump doesn't get a deal he thinks is good enough, the tariffs will be real. Hassett implied that Trump was not satisfied with some sketches of deals negotiated by Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and others on his trade team, and believes the deals need to get better. This comes after Trump sent letters to 25 countries over the past week, notifying them of their blanket tariff rates. South Korea, Japan and Malaysia were handed 25% tariffs, while Mexico and the European Union on Saturday were told to pay up 30%. Regarding the higher 50% rate announced for Brazil, Hassett said Trump had been very frustrated with bilateral negotiations with Brazil and its actions. Trump has also accused the incumbent government of targeting its former president Jair Bolsonaro. In response to Trump's letter, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that the EU will delay its own imposition of retaliatory tariffs on US goods, originally scheduled to take effect on Monday, until early August. Acknowledging Washington's notice over the weekend, von der Leyen indicated that Brussels prefers to negotiate to seek a solution within the given timeframe. The EU initially prepared a first round of retaliatory tariffs in response to US duties on European steel and aluminium, targeting €21 billion worth of American goods with additional duties. While showing willingness to negotiate, European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron, have also voiced determination to defend European interests. Meanwhile, Mexican leader Claudia Sheinbaum struck an optimistic tone, saying she is confident she can reach a deal, saying Trump's letter indicates his intention to negotiate. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea's pre-owned cars have been driving up the country's exports in recent months. Our business correspondent Park Chun-han covers this trend and its prospects.
What some in Korea see as outdated or no longer needed can become a brand new start on the other side of the world, such as used cars. South Korea's used car export market is gaining momentum, with shipments this year projected to exceed 10 trillion won, approximately $7.25 billion for the first time on record. With rising popularity in the Middle East, exports in June 2025 alone jumped nearly 68% year-on-year, extending the strong growth trend that began in the early 2020s. I'm sitting in a used Korean car that is ready to be shipped overseas. In fact, thousands of cars like this leave this lot every day to welcome new owners around the world. Still runs perfectly. Industry insiders claim that the vehicles made in Korea are well known for their affordability, reliability, and accessibility.
Korean used cars are exported to around 160 countries. Not only are they high in quality and equipped with many features, but they're also competitively priced. On top of that, Korea has a well-established parts supply system and after-sales services around the world.
Used car exports involve complex but streamlined processes, including vehicle collection, inspection, repairs, deregistration, and coordination with customs brokers and freight forwarders. Once loaded onto ships, vehicles begin their second life overseas. Despite the positive outlook, there are looming risks. Local exporters shared concern over rising shipping costs and tightening import regulations abroad, especially in light of the U.S. government's recent tariff actions that could impact the price of overseas car shipping.
Our biggest concern right now, especially with the hike in U.S. tariffs, is the spike in freight rates. A couple of months ago, the cost nearly tripled, and it's been fluctuating ever since. That's become one of the biggest challenges for dealers like us.
Supported by continued demand for used vehicles, coupled with government support to deal with regulatory challenges in global trade, South Korea's used vehicle exports are expected to grow steadily. Park Junan, Arirang News.
Running is a fitness trend that has been gaining greater traction here in South Korea in recent times, and the blistering summer heat here is doing little to dampen the spirit of runners here in the capital city. Our Park Hyo-bin joined them.
It's 7 p.m. on a humid summer evening, but the heat hasn't stopped these runners. People stretch, chat, and tie their shoelaces, getting ready for their weekly run.
I really feel like I've become healthier through running. Even when it's tough in the summer, I think of it as a double XP event, so I push myself even harder.
When I run with the crew, I get more energy from the people around me. I end up running further than I could on my own, and I enjoy it more too.
They're the Seoul Running Crew, a free community running program held at 3 locations across Seoul. Every Thursday evening, runners meet up and split into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels.
Right now, I'm running with the crew members here at Seoul Yeouido Park, and even when the sun's nearly gone down, the heat is intense and so is the energy.
Led by professional coaches, including former national athletes, participants are guided safely based on their pace and fitness levels. Since this season kicked off in April, all 60 spots at each location have been fully booked every single week. To support this growing fitness trend, the city has even revamped its infrastructure. Take Yeouido Station right in the heart of Seoul's business district. It now features a runner station, a dedicated facility for joggers equipped with lockers and changing rooms, so office workers can head straight out for a run after work. The station also offers live weather updates, UV levels, and wind speed, so runners can check if conditions are safe to run. There are also checkup sessions for beginner runners, helping them find the right pace range and recommending routes that match their fitness level. Despite the sweltering heat, more and more people are lacing up their shoes and hitting the asphalt. For them, summer nights aren't just about beating the heat, they're about building community, pushing limits, and making the city their own. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
And the original soundtrack of Netflix animation K-pop Demon Hunters continues to soar on the Billboard 200 chart. The soundtrack ranked second according to the latest findings, having entered the chart at 8th place upon its release. According to the US music chart, the soundtrack has also secured 96.3 million streams in its third week, the highest weekly streaming for a film soundtrack since Encanto in 2022. Golden, one of the songs in K-pop Demon Hunters, has also topped domestic charts, including Lemon's Top 10, one of Korea's leading music charts.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Sunday an accelerated military spending plan aiming to double France's armed forces budget by 2027, which is 3 years ahead of schedule as Europe faces mounting security threats. On July 13th, Macron announced an additional $7.6 billion in defense funding over 2026 and 2027, pushing France's military budget to $74.8 billion in 2027, which would be double the $37.64 billion in annual spending when Macron took office in 2017. Making an address to the armed forces on the eve of the Bastille Day national holiday, Macron described the move as essential in response to unprecedented threats, including Russia's aggression, nuclear proliferation, terrorism, and global instability. He said, "To be free in this world, we must be feared. To be feared, we must be powerful." He also said details on the 2026 budget plans will be announced on Tuesday by the Prime Minister. In the United States, a fast-moving wildfire near the Grand Canyon's North Rim has forced a full evacuation and destroyed key infrastructure. Park authorities said Sunday that the Grand Canyon Lodge, the only lodging inside the park at the North Rim, had been destroyed by the flames and evacuation orders were issued. The blaze, dubbed the Dragon Bravo Fire, rapidly grew to more than 20 square kilometers, consuming the historic Grand Canyon Lodge, visitor center, administrative offices, and a wastewater treatment plant. Park authorities evacuated all staff and approximately 500 visitors from the North Rim, which opens seasonally. The wastewater plant fire triggered a chlorine gas leak, leading officials to restrict access to inner canyon trails until air quality is verified. Nearby crews are also battling the White Sage Fire, which has burned over 40,000 acres north of the park. Cambodia celebrated the inscription of 3 former Khmer Rouge sites as UNESCO World Heritage, marking the first modern-era recognition on behalf of the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, Choeung Ek Killing Fields, and M13 Prison. These are notorious locations used as torture and execution sites in the past. At a UNESCO meeting in Paris on July 11th, the sites were officially listed under Cambodian memorial sites, from centers of repression to places of peace and reflection. Cambodia held nationwide drum-beating ceremonies on Sunday to honor the designation. Cambodia's interim culture minister described the listing as a model for the world. 23-year-old Yannick Sinner won his first Wimbledon men's singles title on Sunday in a historic final between the world's number 1 and number 2 players, defeating defending champion Carlos Alcaraz with scores of 4-6, 6-4, 6-4, and 6-4. Sinner became the first ever Italian Wimbledon singles champion, and the victory marks his 4th Grand Slam title overall. Despite dropping the first set, Sinner played on with resilience as he won 3 consecutive sets to end his 5-match losing streak against Alcaraz. Alcaraz, seeking a 3rd consecutive Wimbledon crown, acknowledged Sinner's performance, calling their rivalry a class apart. 최지희, Arirang News.
Rain clouds will gradually cover the whole country. This rain is concentrated in the center and northern areas of eastern parts of Gangwon-do province, which will get more than 100 millimeters by tomorrow. Other areas are expected to receive between 5 millimeters and 60 millimeters of rain. With rain everywhere, the heat wave has cooled down. The daytime temperature in Seoul only topped out at 29 degrees Celsius and 31 degrees in Daegu. Temperatures will stay under 30 degrees even during the day across the country tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, Seoul, Chuncheon, Gwangju, and Daegu will start off at 22 degrees, Busan 23 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 29 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon, Daegu, and Gyeongju. Busan, 28 degrees. The rain will stop tomorrow for a while afternoon, for again across the country on Wednesday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.